Thank you, Roshun, for your welcoming presence and the warm welcome words. Requesting you to please stay back and have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's march ahead. Time for us to welcome our first esteemed speaker, Mr. Dilip Asbe, CEO, National Payments Corporation of India, aptly known as the brain behind UPI and a seasoned business leader in the electronic payments industry. Mr. Asbe has played a pivotal role in bringing radical changes to the digital payments ecosystem in India. He has a deep understanding of cards, including debit cards, prepaid cards, and credit cards, along with channels such as ATMs, POS, kiosks, and mobile platforms. We are really grateful for your electronic presence, gentlemen. Joining him is our very own Roshun Povaiah. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome them.
The question should be otherwise, I guess. We have reached to a stage, as a country, we have reached to a stage. Now we need to ask the question otherwise. How many don't use UPI?
How many don't use UPI? Actually, if you looked at the quick show of hands, also we were close to about 80%, I would say. That's going to be my first question to you. I mean, UPI has been progressing at a fairly rapid rate, and we are now 9 billion transactions last month. But where do you see this headed? What's your target like?
So I think, the digital payment should be the function of its population. And, I think in your speech, opening speech, you were talking about the growth in cash and still the existence of such a large banknotes in circulation. So I believe a lot more has to be done. And where we stand, we see easily a 10x growth from where we stand. Not only UPI, I'm talking about overall digital payments. And that I think that's what is the effort of the RBI and the government. And if we really want to call ourselves a digital payment economy, we need to be a single-digit cash to GDP ratio, and I think that's where the efforts are required by the banks, by the fintechs, by NPCI, to create systems that will take us to that single-digit ratio.
Okay. But still, like you were mentioning, the cash to GDP ratio is fairly high. And you've come up with
the growth is reduced. See, obviously the economy is growing, so cash will also grow, right? But the growth rate has tapered down last 2 years, but we still have to see.
Okay. So you've just come up with products like UPI Lite now. Do you think that would have an impact in probably reducing, at least at the lower level, some amount of cash?
This has been a long time ask from the banks, right? In fact, NPCI was a little bit delayed to deliver this to the market. Because I think the simple point which banks have been raising that, it's really not economical and efficient, more important, to process large number of low ticket transactions in the CBS, right? Core banking systems, the bank systems. And I think they are right. And, what we have done now is, right now the RBI has permitted up to 200 rupees transactions can be done on Lite. And I think it's a really efficient way because, when we look at the regular UPI transaction, it takes about 5 to 6 seconds. On an average, the Lite takes about less than 2 seconds. So I think from an efficiency standpoint, the customer experience standpoint, the technical decline standpoint, which the transactions could not be processed because of the high volumes, I think it's a great solution to the ecosystem. Now, I think it may take some more time to adopt, but I believe most of the low-ticket transactions should happen on Lite. That's the effort we are putting in. We are requesting banks, fintechs, startups to also put in the similar efforts so that all the low-ticket happens back on the device.
Okay. But the failure rates we are seeing with larger transactions earlier, I mean, it used to be slightly higher. Where do you stand right now on the failure rate?
See, today NPCI monitors the failure rates. In fact, NPCI publishes the failure rates on its website. The METI also puts up the dashboard, digital payment dashboard on a monthly basis. And also RBI monitors very, very closely. In fact, RBI does the quarterly review. The large decline banks, RBI does the meetings separately along with NPCI and other players. In fact, last month was the first month we did less than, in the entire UPI history, less than 1% technical decline. So in last 7 years, it was the first month which we and all the thanks to efforts on the banks, RBI, and everybody to put that rigor in place to get it below 1%, and that's the international standards. So we can now say that UPI on a technical decline and a customer service is best of the best in the world.
Okay. But I must ask you this one question. I mean, UPI is still free of charge for consumers, but at some and right now even for merchants. But at some point, there will be a transaction cost. When do you see that coming in? Because every transaction has a cost, right?
Today the government obviously charging consumers. I don't see there is a discussion or even debate. Charging merchants, the government as of now incentivizing the digital payments, and I think till the time government is incentivizing, we will stay with that. And I think the government objective is UPI to grow, and the merchants should not create any resistance to accept the payment. That's a objective which government is driving, and kind of helping transparency, a greater good for the country. And in lieu of that, the government is incentivizing the banks and the ecosystem players to a reasonable number. So I think we are okay with that in my assessment, and we will continue to see that how UPI growth can be achieved by innovation and the new features.
Right. Staying on the same point, I mean, a few years ago, if you went to a point of sale terminal and when you're checking out from a shop, and if you're paying in cash, it was a different thing. If they say like, sir, आप card से pay करेंगे, तो 2% charge लगेगा.
Yeah, and that's the whole reason why government intervened, was because of that same problem of see, somewhere that cost will be borne by somebody, right? Even if merchant bones that cost, it will pass on that cost to the consumer by some way or the other. However, I believe that now we have launched credit on UPI, right? I think that's very remunerating back to, because it's a loan product, and that is where otherwise the merchant is not having that access to that money, right? Because somebody is giving a free of cost loan for 45 days. So their merchant is very willing to pay that MDR. And I think that could be one of the strategies to incentivize the ecosystem by creating additional layers inside the UPI ecosystem, so that the remuneration is possible. Whether it's a credit, whether it's a mandate as a service, right? So their merchants don't mind paying charges because they are getting a specific service which is over and above the payments.
Right. Coming to another popular product of yours, RuPay is making quite a few inroads, and RuPay and UPI have a very close relationship, obviously. And do you see RuPay now heading global, being globally accepted?
Yeah, I think there are 2-3 things. One is we are driving this national common mobility card in a big way. It is embedded in every debit card now. So it's kind of a one nation, one card, because single card you can use for the low ticket offline transactions as well as the regular debit, ATM, POS, e-commerce transaction. The second thing is, we are making heavy investments on uplifting the RuPay brand image, right? So, a few years back, Mr. Padi is there from Bank of India. He would remember that the customers used to come back and say, "No, I don't want RuPay card. Give me the better international card scheme card because of the brand image." So we have been consistently consciously investing back in RuPay brand. And now you see last 2-3 years, the RuPay is on the brand standpoint is a number 2. Earlier it was distant number 3. But last 4-5 years, we have seen a consistent progress on RuPay brand image. And we don't hear any cases that customer is saying that, I don't want RuPay. And that has been a big confidence booster for the banks as well. And that happens on both the things. One is the brand image. We are a brand sponsor in IPL. We are also looking at variety of discount schemes and cashback schemes in collaboration with the banks, of course, to offer for the RuPay customers, and that has really improved the position in that sense. And our aspiration is we want to be a number one, right? We don't like even number two. We are very close number two now, but I think our aspiration is to become a number one brand in the country. Our aspiration is to become number one brand on spends and transactions, all put together.
Right. I think on that front, I think India has a number of options already available. If you go to any, to check out, there's so many options from your wallets to prepaid instruments to credit cards, debit cards, UPI, everything. For international transactions, we are still largely dependent on a SWIFT network. Do you think India can come up with an alternative? Because there are lots of asks, at least with the Ukraine-Russia war, we saw that.
See, I cannot comment on things which I don't fully understand. I think and especially the RBI and the government objective is India over the period connects back to at least 15 to 20 of its top trade partners or top remittance partners or the outbound travel with the real-time bank account to bank account transfers. I think that's a clear objective, which is very much aligned to the G20 objective on cross-border transactions, efficient cross-border transactions as well. So I think it's a long journey. I think the RBI and Monetary Authority of Singapore came together to launch the India-Singapore corridor. And I believe now about 70 plus countries have the fast payment network in their country. So I think there is an opportunity. Again, it depends on the other country's choice. It depends on how quickly we are able to reach out to their central bank, their government, and kind of get the MOU, regulatory level or the government level MOU signed up or the agreement made, right? And so that then NPCI and the banks can take up the execution role in that sense.
So you think this will make some products like maybe prepaid forex cards redundant?
Oh yeah, I'm saying that okay, look, I'm just saying that the opportunities are immense. We'll have to prioritize, and obviously we can't do everything together. But I think the cross-border transactions is a priority for us and for the banks, and I think we're making a steady progress on that.
Right. I'll also take a couple of questions from the audience, but I have one more very crucial question for you. That's on security. We're increasingly seeing a lot of fraud happening over the UPI network because I think consumer awareness is still fairly low. What are you doing to kind of safeguard that? We have two-factor authentication. We have a number of steps, but still there are frauds taking place.
So first of all, the frauds are increasing. I fully subscribe to the view, but these frauds are not UPI frauds, right? So there are investments frauds, there are job scams, there are a variety of frauds. And today the fraudsters have gone to a different level. They are engaging with the user for a longer period. You go to the if you go to the search engine, you will see similar kind of schemes, fake schemes, and they engage and for 20 days, 30 days, and give the confidence, and then boom, one day they disappear. So it's first of all, it's not a UPI fraud. There is no technical frauds happening because of UPI. Customer always shares 2 or 3 information or these kind of greed or related frauds. I think the awareness is very important, and I was talking some time back that I think it's really amazing to see that what AMFI has done on mutual funds a year. They spend about 300 to 500 crore every year as an ecosystem. We do it at a very small scale. UPI chalega at about 25 to 50 crore. The banks contribute, NPCI contributes, and the fintechs also contribute. But I think much larger scale. We need at least about 500 crore plus to be invested in consumer awareness for at least next 5 to 10 years time, so that somebody coming back and telling consumers that there is no easy money. There is no. I think the RBI Kehta Hai campaign has been very useful and helpful. We see the trend improving on whatever the fraud we see the trend improving, but very early days. I think a lot more investments are required in awareness.
Okay. Can we get a couple of questions in the audience? Just put your hand up and I'll get a mic to you. Any audience questions? Okay, so Got another question from Mr. Asbe. That's on, you're also a significant contributor to the entire FASTag project, right? But now that is also set to change in the next couple of years with the complete toll-free system, toll-less, the toll-gate-less system that's being devised. How do you see that developing?
So I believe that many systems will evolve, and it may take some time, right? But the way we are, and there are some pilots happening as we speak. Basis the GPS, basis the number plate reading. We are working very closely with RBI and the NHAI to see how can we reduce the cost at the toll plaza, so that more and more such use cases can be deployed instead of having a need of a physical infrastructure structure at the toll plaza.
Okay. And one last question. If there's no other, there's one question from the audience. Yeah, you can just get a mic to him, and then I'll have one last question with you, because I understand you're in a bit of a hurry.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce yourself and then ask?
Okay, my name is Yogesh Udgire. I'm from Digital Transformation Academy. So my question is, the way UP has been dominant, but the same thing I don't see with regards to RuPay card. So the adoption still with compared to Visa or MasterCard, RuPay, I don't see that much within India and abroad. So what according to you is lagging on that part? Thanks.
So, sir, first of all, as I told you, on a brand side, we had a big impact initially, right? So the customer refusal was very high, but now with the investments from NPCI and the banks, the brand refusal has dramatically come down, almost close to zero. Today on the debit cards, we are about 1/3 of the spends, actual spends. So it's a very encouraging number. Obviously, all of us would aspire that the domestic scheme should do at least 50% plus, right? So, and that's where the efforts are on. We are working very closely with the banks. The public sector banks have been very supportive on RuPay scheme, even when the MDR is zero in that particular process. But we believe that soon we will see start a lot of movements on RuPay. We see good uptake on RuPay credit. This year we aspire to exit with a double-digit market spends on credit as well. So a lot of efforts are on. Maybe hopefully you will see that happening during the course of year.
Okay. One more question there at the back. Yeah. Just introduce yourself and this.
I'm audible?
Yes.
Hats off to NPCI and the UPI interface, a big fan. And taking from what the other colleague of mine had asked, we are actually expecting, just as we Indian consumers, when we apply for a credit card, I'm actually looking forward for the day when we will be getting maybe an HDFC or an SBI credit card, which will be RuPay. So that's where I would really want.
I think you can reach out to. So today, as we speak,
Yes.
25% credit cards issued in the country
Okay.
are RuPay cards. New credit cards issued.
Credit cards.
So you can, and SBI cards issues RuPay, HDFC card issues RuPay, Axis issues RuPay. So you can go back and approach them. Most of the leading credit card issuers are issuing RuPay credit cards. In fact, I have now added them in the UPI as well now with the recent RBI enablement.
Yes.
Now I have all my SBI card, the HDFC card, Axis card are inside my UPI app. Maybe I'll show you after this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So please approach them or otherwise reach out to NPCI. We can help you to get the card.
Yes, sir. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question
Yes, sir.
on
Can you just introduce yourself and
inducting a PSP into the NPCI network. So, the question which I had is, just like in the India stack, you have a standard stack of API, which can be a sort of a plug and play for any fintech which comes in. When I come to activating a switch with a PSP, each one of them requires a dedicated testing with NPCI before we can onboard it. Now, isn't there a standardized protocol that we can publish, which then becomes the de facto standard for the industry, which elevates the need for testing and that lead time to get it live?
I think it's a great question. That is the direction we are moving into. I think most of the banks have replicated only the banks can be the PSP. That is how the UPI access has been defined, because there is a liability, there is authorization and those kind of activities. And today only banks are permitted. So now the apps which are talking to the banks as PSP, some of the leading banks already have translated the UPI specs even to the app providers. And that's where, if you are certified for one bank, or one PSP, certifying with multiple PSPs should not take time. So we are in the process. Hopefully in next few months, most of the banks who are acting as PSP will have a unified specs offering to the fintechs and app providers.
Myself, Raghuveer Singh Marwa. See, it's a great thing that we are came to UPI. Everyone are using the UPI, but in between there was rumors that UPI will be charged. As you told, it won't be charged. In future, if it will be charged to the vendors or it will be passed on to the consumer. What a effect it will be on the transaction, and how it will decrease, because using of the UPI has decreased the fake currency in the market.
No. See, I think let's not discuss the future things, right? Because you were saying that what can happen in future, nobody knows. So
Yeah.
as of now, it's not charged. So let's not worry about that part, right? So I think I clarified that even as far as consumers are concerned, it would remain free. So you should not worry from a consumer standpoint. The issue which is being debated on UPI charging is only to the merchants, right? And that too to the large merchants, because they are already paying the charges for the credit cards, debit cards in a much higher value compared to UPI. So I think that is the only question. But till the time government is subsidizing the charges, right? Government is subsidizing the ecosystem. I don't think the charging question comes in at this stage.
So you think it will be less than the 2% that they charge on Tibetan
Sorry?
credit card? It will be less than the 2% that they charge?
Oh, no. UPI charges have been always lesser. So UPI, when we were charging also before the government mandate came, it was about 30 basis points.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was far lower than the standard card.
And will continue
card
to be
rates.
like that. Okay. Okay, on that note, I think Mr. Asbe has to rush somewhere else right now, so I want to thank him for taking the time out and coming here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for your
sir.
input.
Thank you.
Thank you.